Welcome back, and we'll reconvene the meeting. And we're on to item 15, Memorandum of Understanding regarding the Climax engine. Gary, you or straight to Gary?
Well, let's go straight
Number
to Gary.
2.
I'd like to steal Gary's thunder, so.
Gary, hand it over to you. I must admit, I don't really like the choices of the options that we've got, but never mind.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Your Worship, Morena councillors. So, yeah, just before you have a memorandum of understanding with the Climax Trust that we're seeking for you to give authority for the Chief Executive to sign. So a little bit of background behind this is some of you may not be aware, this has been a 20-year labour of love for the trust. Previously, the engine sat in the War Memorial Park for 50 odd years, and basically was well in need of some restoration. At that point, it was council agreed to the project basically taken on board by the Lions Club at that time, who formed the trust. And 20 years later, or nearly 20 years later, they're ready to hand the locomotive back to council. It is at council's property, but they want to, I guess, close out their project and hand the loco back. However, having spent 20 years on the project, they're keen to, I guess, make sure that we take care of it properly. It does need a proper display shed. It's not appropriate now to put it out in the open air. And for some time, we've been looking for an appropriate site within Te Awamutu for the engine. And I think the team have always had Te Awamutu and restoring this for Te Awamutu in their sites as their objective for it to be I guess, a visitor attraction. So as I said, we hadn't been able to identify a location, but with the purchase of the Bunnings building for Te Arawai, it does open an opportunity for the locomotive to be located somewhere within that general vicinity precinct for Te Arawai. Having said that, there's still a few issues that we'll have to consider there, and we haven't done any detailed site planning for that Te Arawai site. So wherever it does go in that area will need to be sympathetic to Te Arawai. It won't be able to sort of compete with that, the Te Arawai ethos. So we'll need to make sure that the area is designed appropriately. That will require some consultation with Mana Whenua as well, just to make sure that that is, where we do locate it finally isn't appropriate. And also the building it will be located in will need to be an appropriate design. Now, currently you have $100,000, I think, in the LTP to go towards relocating the engine from its current location in the Daphne Street depot, and some seed capital for a building. Potentially that building could be somewhere between 300 up towards $1 million, just depending on location, foundations, and all that sort of thing. So we're a bit unsure about where that will go. You've put in $100,000, so we will have to fundraise for the remainder of that. So that will be an activity that we will work with the Lions Club on, fundraising for that. So that's in a nutshell where we're at. We've got the copy of the draft memorandum there for you to consider, and if you agree, for the Chief Executive to sign. I think that's about all.
Thanks, Gary. Look, the Lions Club have done a phenomenal job with the restoration work on this.
Sorry,
come in, Russell. Would you like to, Russell? would you like to take a seat up with Gary? Not that we're putting you in the hot seat, but in case you want to make any comments. Councillors who don't know the guy hiding behind that mask, if Russell Easton. Russell's done a lot of work for the community on a number of issues, but certainly been a driving force with the restoration work on the Climax engine. Russell, as you came in, I was just saying it's done a phenomenal job with the locomotive, and we've obviously now got to find the appropriate location and funding, obviously, to build a building to display it, whether it's part of the new Tiarawai or alongside or somewhere in that vicinity. But Gary's just run through a brief history on it. So look, but before we start, did you want to, I'm not dropping you in, did you want to make any comments about it at all?
No, I think,
Yeah.
Gary has done a pretty good job. We've been back and forwards and got a MOU together, and we fully understand the financial side of it.
Yeah.
And as the Lions Club, we would be happy to try and support where we can. We can't do a total thing, I wouldn't think, but support something in the future as long as it was in a place where it got its due rewards.
Yeah. Thanks, Russell. So in terms of, although the engine was working up at Naroma, it's certainly appropriate in that locality. That was a timber yard where a lot of the timber from Naroma would have been milled and came into Te Awamutu and probably formed was part of the construction of a lot of dwellings around Te Awamutu so it has got that historical context. So and look, I think probably in the next 10-year or even the annual plan, the amount of funding that the council has already identified is not going to be sufficient realistically with the building that we're talking about, just the sheer size of it and costs. But anyway, open it up for discussion and comments around the table. Lou.
Thank you, Russell, for coming along, and Gary, well done for the work that you've done on this, which has been a long-going thing. I think everybody's got to realise that the Climax Engine Trust can now close down with this MOU their books and actually finalise that original construct. So you don't have to have annual general meetings or everything as you'd have to at the moment, even while it's sitting down at Daphne Street. So that can actually be resolved to that stage. As I believe you accepted the fact that it will remain in the interim period in that location with your assistance of maintaining it, keeping it in good order. So there's no aspirations of a rapid relocation, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. The only issue really was that we will continue with the trust because we have to do our company office returns each year, which will be a nil return, but we'll still have to keep that going, I feel. And the AGM will be online, pretty basic, just to keep our foot in the door for fundraising, if that's the way we go. And I can't see why it wouldn't be, and so that's why I'd keep it going. But realistically, our trustees, 3 of them have passed away. There's only 3 of us as original still about with any interest in it. And so, but it's been 20 years. You can't expect things to keep going.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is that, another 5 years, as we're suspecting, a few of us may not be here either. So, someone's got to take over. And that's why I'm really upholded to Gary here for trying to get this MOU to sort of cover the things that we projected prior and why we spent the money on it to get it to this stage. And the third option there is to sell it. Well, I can tell you, Well, the bottom line is we've had people donating money straight to that project, to council, out of their pockets, big time. Well, if you want to pay them back, because that's the way I feel. We did it for the town. And I mean, 20 years, an old Ken out there, and I've got 2 joggers who, as Jim full knows, I want to do the presentation and thank them from council's point of view for their hours and hours of work.
Yes, thanks, Russell. You came in just after I did the introduction, and I already said to Gary I didn't like his options too much. But
I understand, yes.
yeah, okay. Thanks for that, Russell. And yes, we do need to acknowledge those, well, it's skilled craftsmen that have restored that engine. So it's not just a.
I tell you 100%, I didn't do anything. If it hadn't been for those 2, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Russell. Just a question. Do you need to keep the trust going just as a fundraising mechanism? Because it might be easier to have it as a project under the Waipa Community Trust, which is that fundraising trust that we set up purely for voluntary groups to use as a mechanism to raise money, and just wonder whether it's
Well, we need to talk about that.
yeah, whether that might be an option that
would sooner let it go if I could.
yeah. Okay, we could look at that.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments around the table, Bruce?
Russell or Gary, do you see this as an interactive display when it gets moved that people can actually touch it, or is it going to be blocked off and you can't touch them, or health and safety issues that you call up and might hurt yourself?
You got me.
It's not an interactive. It's there for display. We'll be making like a walkway where you, well, this is me thinking, we come up and you look into it, take photos into it, etc., etc. But you know, for instance, the brass work on it has been brought from the States, etc., and very hard to replace. And you know, and if it goes missing, we've got a problem. And obviously there is a health and safety issue for people climbing on it now that it has to be looked on as a falling, you know, issue. But no, glass fronted, people go in, I'd see, pay admission somehow. MOU sort of, we've got that written in that whoever was administrating the museum would take control of that as well, because Lions don't really want to be there continually. Yeah.
Thanks, Bruce. Marcus.
Yeah, it's a fantastic restoration. It looks amazing. So I'd be happy to move the recommendations.
Thanks, Marcus. Roger. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so we've got a mover and seconder from Marcus and Roger, but we've got just an addition to the recommendation, recommendation B, that authorise the Chief Executive to sign the Memorandum of Understanding between the Climax 1317 Trust and Waipa District Council on behalf of Council, noting, and this is the extra bit, noting that Council's designated representative will be Gary Knighton, Manager of Strategic Partnerships. So as long as the mover and seconder are happy with that. Is there any other comments or questions? Okay, so we're happy with the memorandum, and that can formalise the situation. So I've got a mover and second, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Thanks, Russell. Thanks for all of your effort and for the Lions Club, and look, happy to work in with some form of recognition for everybody that's been working on it. Yeah, thanks, Russell.
I'll just catch up with Russell. It's John Miles.
Yeah. Okay, item 16, John Miles is moving through to the hot seat. Legalisation of O'Shea Road, Prongia. John, hand straight over to you.
Good morning, everyone. This relates to a matter that was brought to Finance and Corporate a week or so ago. It's a historic tidy up. So basically it was approved last week. It just needs a formal council approval this week.
Thanks, John. Andrew, questions or moving? Andrew's moved, Susan's second. Were there any questions? Everyone happy with that? Right, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you. Then we have item 17, the easement agreement for the Te Awa Cycleway, Taumata Iwi.
This one relates to the Te Awa Cycleway south of Karapiro. So it's obviously been there for a while. This easement couldn't be put in place till the co-management arrangement was put in place. That's now in place. So we can register the easement, and it's but it'll be subject to the operating easement that Mercury have over the lake and adjoining land. So it's just to tidy up and formalise the cycleway to basically just north of where it finishes. And we're out there the other day, so we have got a route to get to Waipuki once council gets some funds for that.
Thanks, John. Moved Councillor Webber, seconded Councillor Lou Brown. Was there any discussion? It's tidying up an existing situation. So all those in favour? Aye. Contrary, carried. Item 18, the resolution to exclude the public. Moved Councillor St Pierre and seconded Councillor Thomas.